Creating art is not just about the final product, it's about the journey. It's a wonderful way to relax, de-stress, and let your creativity flow. Hi, I'm Lisa Bardot, and for almost a decade, I've helped millions of people all over the world find their creativity through drawing on the iPad. Creativity is my form of self-care. I'll share techniques to get you in the right mindset for your creative practice, so you can unwind and immerse yourself in the process. Some experience using Procreate is helpful, but don't worry, I will guide you through every step of the way. Without further ado, let's get started crafting your first map. Let's begin by creating a new canvas. Tap the plus sign in the upper right. The canvas size we're going to be using today is 3800 by 2800 pixels. If you don't already have a template saved for that size, here's how you can create one. Tap this little rectangle right here in the upper right corner. Make sure you're down here under pixels, and we're going to type in 3800 for the width and 2800 for the height. And you can give this canvas template a name, and then tap create. Let's start by choosing a base color. Now you can choose any color you want for your map. I'm gonna do kind of a dusty teal color. So something kind of like this, not too saturated. I'm kind of going for calm here. So that's the color that I'm gonna start with. And then I'll head to my brush library and go into the map-making brush pack. We're gonna start with a brush called Pathways. So we're going to create sort of a blob shape for this map. So go ahead and move your Apple Pencil all the way around the edges of your canvas in sort of a wavy line like this until you have a completely closed shape. And then you can fill it with color drop. Once you have a base, you can start adding in some roads. We're going to go up to our layers and we're going to tap the plus sign to create a new layer. And we are going to set this layer to be a clipping mask. So just tap this new layer that you just created. And in the menu, you can choose clipping mask and you'll see a little arrow pointing down to the layer below. Whatever we draw on this layer will only show up within this blob shape. So that's perfect for our roads. Now let's go into our color picker and we're going to pick a color that's just a little bit lighter. And we're going to kind of move this direction in this color disc. So go a little bit lighter. So something like that. And test it out. I think that's a good color. And we're going to use the same brush for our roads, this Pathways brush. And now we're just going to draw some kind of meandering roads that go through the blob. And you can do really whatever you want here. I'm going to draw kind of a curving one up that way. And maybe we'll have one kind of slicing through like that. And then we can have one kind of connecting and going through sort of like that. But you can place your roads wherever you would like. Now that we've got some roads, we can decide if we want to add some water elements like a little stream or river. And I'm going to do that on a separate layer. I'm going to go up to my layers. I'm going to tap the layer with the blob. And then I'm going to tap the plus sign. That's going to create a layer in between the two layers that we've just made. And then for my colors, I'm going to go into these cooler blues over here and just get like a nice good color for water. I think that's a good color. It's always good to test a little swatch to see if you like the color. And then I'm just going to draw kind of a wavy, sort of rivery line going through my map. Okay, so now that we've kind of made the lay of the land, we can start adding in some little map elements. I'm going to go into my layers. I'm going to tap the topmost layer here, and then I'm going to tap the plus sign to create a new layer right above that. Now, all of my map elements are just going to be a little bit darker color than my base color. So I'm just going to sample my base color here. I'm going to go into my color picker and I'm going to move this way in the color disc. So I'm getting just a color that's a little bit darker and more saturated. A little bit darker than that, just so those elements really stand out. I think that's good. And we're going to start by drawing a few structures for our map. So to do that, we're going to go into our brushes and we're going to choose the liner brush. It's the first one. Now we're going to go ahead and draw some houses. So go ahead and pick a spot where you want to put a house. I'm going to zoom in to this little spot right here. And we're going to draw these really simple kind of like 2D, 3D houses. So I'm going to start by drawing kind of a long rectangle that's open on top like this. And then I'm going to draw another line that's not quite halfway, kind of off to one side. And then we're going to draw our roof line. So it's going to be a triangle like that. And then the line from the bottom of the triangle is going to go off parallel to the bottom of the house. And then it's going to come back up like that. And then I'll connect those two to form the roof. And then I can fill the roof with color drop because I'm going to make my roofs dark. I'm going to thicken up that side a little bit. And then I'm going to close off this end right here like that. And there's my little house. And now that I've drawn that, I can add doors and windows and things like that. So add a little door to your house wherever you'd like. And then maybe a couple windows too. I'm just kind of filling in both the doors and the windows with colors like that. So there's our first little house. Super cute, very simple. Now let's pick a spot for another house. Let's go down here, kind of under the river. And maybe there's a little house over here. So let's do that again. Start by drawing a long rectangle like this, and then divide the rectangle like that. And on the smaller part, we'll add our little roof line. Draw a line parallel to the bottom that way. And then the other side of the roof in parallel with this line here, and then close it off. And then we can fill that with color. And then just kind of close off that triangle on the other side. We have our little house. Now we can add doors and windows. So maybe I'll do like my door off to the side on this one, a little window next to it, and then maybe like a kind of semicircle window above that. And then a couple windows on the side of the house. And then maybe this time we can add a little chimney. Just draw a little rectangle on top of the house and color it in. There we go. So now we've got two houses in our little map area. Let's do one more, maybe over here. You can add as many houses as you like, but this is kind of a countryside scene, so we don't need to do too many houses. And you can draw them all in the same way. Draw a big rectangle, divide it, add our little roof line, draw a line across, and then up and back, and then connect and fill it with color. And then we can add our doors and windows. Maybe our doors on this side this time. We'll just add door right there, a little rectangle, and a window. And then maybe two narrow windows on this side. You can design your house however you like. A little half circle window on top. We're just kind of like doing a lot of the same things, but just a little bit different. And then let's put a chimney on. You can draw your chimney as an open shape too. You don't have to color it in, it's up to you. So now we've got 3 little houses on our map. Let's add one more. Since this is a countryside scene, let's add a little barn. And I'm gonna put that for me over here. You can put it anywhere you'd like. So if we wanna draw a barn, it's very similar. So again, we're gonna start with our rectangle, get really long, like that, 3 sides. Then we're gonna divide it like this. And the barn has a little bit different roof line than a normal house. So we're gonna draw 2 lines kind of like this. So like partial roof. And then 2 more lines that kind of are at like a little bit less of a slope to create the barn shape. And then just like with the houses, we'll draw a line back and parallel with the ground. And then we're just gonna mirror these angles over on this side. So there's that angle, and then this one kind of comes in a little bit more like that. And then connect the top like that. We can fill that in with color drop. Awesome. Color that side in like this. And now we get to add our doors and windows, but we get to do barn style. So let's add a barn door on one side. So this is going to be a nice big rectangle. We're going to divide the rectangle in half like this, and then put X's on it. Super simple. There we go. Simple barn door. And then a little kind of barn window, just a long rectangle kind of above the barn door. And then to make it look even more like a barn, we can add some like barn wood slats. So if you do really light pressure with this brush, you'll get a very faint line like this. And this will be perfect for showing the kind of like slats of the barn wood. So just add little vertical lines down your barn. And then also along the side of the barn. You can add windows to your barn on the side if you want or not. It's up to you. Okay. So there's your cute little barn. And why don't we go ahead and add a silo for our barn as well. So we'll have the silo kind of behind the barn a little bit. I'm going to draw a line kind of extending out from the side of the barn, and then it's going to go up for a nice tall silo. And then this is going to end up being a big rectangle, sort of like that. And then it's going to have a round top like that. And then we can just add some lines. Again, I'm doing a little lighter pressure so the lines aren't quite as thick as the outline. And there's our silo. Okay, our little map is coming along. We're going to draw one more structure right over here. I think we need a windmill. So here's how we can draw a windmill. I'm going to start with a triangle shape for the roof, and then kind of a round kind of bottom to that triangle shape. And then two lines kind of coming down and out just a little bit, so it kind of tapers out. And then another curve kind of similar to this one for the bottom of the windmill. And then this is going to be like our little center point where the sails attach. And we're going to just draw some lines like that cross. And then add the sails. These are just more rectangles. And then you can color those in as well. It'll look a little better colored in. Or you can use color drop since they're closed shapes. That makes it a little easier. There's a little windmill. Maybe add a little circle right there where they connect. And then our windmill can have a door, whatever shape door you want to have. Color that in, maybe a little window above it. And there's a little windmill. Okay, so I think we have plenty of structures for our map. Let's start adding some of the fun details like trees and grass and things like that. So let's create a new layer for all these details. Let's go ahead and tap the layers panel and then tap the plus sign. That'll create a layer on top above everything else. We're going to stick with the same color, but now we're going to switch brushes. So let's go into our brush library. And if you scroll down, you'll find all of the fun trees and things like that. Let's start with oval trees. And now let's just start adding in some trees. As you'll notice when you work with this brush, it kind of staggers your trees and also gives you trees of various sizes. So all you have to do is really paint a line and then you've got some trees. So you can add in trees wherever you think you need them. Maybe up here a little bit, over by my house. And maybe we need a tree for our barn. If you want to make a bigger tree, like maybe that tree looks a little bit smaller, you can always make your brush size bigger and you can paint in a bigger tree. Maybe there's some bigger trees down on the farm here. But if you go back to where we have the brush size saved for these brushes, you'll kind of make trees that are in the same proportion as everything else. So you can always go back to that little saved brush size. Okay, let's do some different trees now. Maybe we'll go to these triangle trees. Maybe along the river, we've got some of these kind of like triangle trees. Put some above and below. Maybe above this house, there's some more of those trees. You can draw with this brush or you can tap to add individual trees like that. If you don't like where a tree landed, you can always, erase it or use a selection tool to move it around. That's looking good. And then maybe we need a little bit of grass around this one. So let's go ahead and find the tufts of grass brush. And maybe we'll just add in some grass. I'm just going to draw a few lines of grass everywhere. And then I'll fill that with like a nice grassy texture. Maybe down here near the river, there's a lot of grass. Wherever you think it needs something. just add a little bit of grass. Maybe up here. And maybe around our little barn, some grass. Okay. Now some other elements I think would be fun. It's maybe a little sunflower field over here by this house. So let's go into our brushes, and I have a brush for that. It's called Sunflower Stamp. And this one is a stamp brush. So wherever you tap, it will draw a little sunflower. We can make a little sunflower field over here. So we've got the heads of our flowers, and then we can go ahead and grab that liner brush, and we can draw some stems. So you can make them however tall you want to make them. So I'll just draw a bunch of stems. And then we can draw in some leaves, just kind of on alternating sides of the stem like this. However many leaves you want. Cute. Hey, I think over by our windmill, while we've got the liner brush selected, why don't we draw in some really simple little tulips? I always think of, you know, Holland and tulips with windmill. So I'm just going to do my tulips as kind of like ovals with some kind of like long leaves kind of sticking out the side. So like an oval with a stem and then some like tall leaves. So add some tulips to your little area by the windmill. However many you want. And then since we have our farm over here, let's add some lines to kind of represent like rows of crops. So in the brush set, we've got a few different kinds of line brushes. And I think for crops, either the zigzag line or the squiggle line look really good. So I think I'm going to do the zigzag line. You can choose whichever one you want. And for this, since I kind of want them to extend from the edge of the blob to like underneath this road, I'm actually going to place a layer right above the blob layer. So I'm going to tap the blob, and then I'm going to tap the plus sign. And now I'm going to draw some lines with this zigzag brush. Just kind of all in a row like that. And for this one that's kind of overlapping the silo, I'm just going to get my eraser, and I'll choose that liner brush and just erase, because this would be behind the silo like that. We've got some like farmland over there. Now let's look at our river. We haven't done anything for our river, and I want to add some fun details into that. So let's start by adding some kind of like waves and ripples to our river. So I'm going to tap the layer with the river. I'm going to tap the plus sign to create a new layer. And then I'm going to select this river color. And then I'm going to go into my colors and get something that's just a little darker, more saturated. So again, going this direction in our color disc, test that out. But I don't want to use this zigzag brush. So we have a couple ones that will work well. I've got the squiggle lines, which will make a fun little texture in your river. Or I have the scallop lines, which are kind of like little waves. So I like to do these just like a few like this, kind of all throughout. So however you want to represent water in your map, you can do it that way. Just keep in mind when you're using this brush, you want to always go in this direction. If you go this direction, you'll get like upside down. Doesn't look like waves, but could be cool for something else. There we go, that way. So now we've got some waves in our river. And how about we need a little bridge? We just have a road that's kind of like over the top of the river. So let's draw in a little bridge. I'm going to go to layer with my roads, and I'm going to grab my eraser brush. Again, I'm using the liner brush. And let's erase part of this road away, and we'll build a bridge. There we go, something like that. It'll be a nice long bridge. Okay, and then for the bridge, let's just use the same layer with the houses, this one here. And the color is going to be the same one that we're using for all of our houses and trees and things, so this darker color. And for the brush, let's go back to our liner brush. There we go. Now we're gonna just draw kind of like a big arch on both sides, so the same shape on both sides, and then connect. And this will be our bridge. There we go. And then we can add some little lines with like planks of wood on the bridge. So let's just turn on alpha lock on this layer. We're gonna take 2 fingers and swipe to the right, or you can tap on the layer and choose alpha lock right here. And then for the color, let's just choose a little bit lighter color than what we have now, like that. Just kind of going this way. And then just very lightly draw some lines over your bridge. There you go. And maybe over here we add like a little, like a wayfinding sign. So let's choose our darker color. So I'm just gonna sample it from this windmill up here. And I'm still using my liner brush. And then on our layers, we still have alpha lock turned on. So that means we can't draw anything new on this unless we turn it off. So we can swipe with 2 fingers to the right or tap the layer and unselect alpha lock so that there's no check. And then let's just draw kind of a line. This will be like our signpost. And so we'll draw some kind of parallel lines like that. On one side, we'll draw like a triangle pointing that way with like an inverted triangle on the other side. Color it in. And then we can do one that's going the other way. There you go. Maybe that'll help people find their way in our little imaginary countryside. Since we have kind of this grass that's like competing with our signs, let's go to the layer with the grass, and then we'll just erase these little bits of grass there. There we go. I can see our sign a little bit better. So now if there's any other details that you want to add to your scene, you can. I think I'm just going to add a little bit more grass. So I'm going to go find my tufts of grass brush. And I think up here we could use some grass. Right there. Maybe over here. And then maybe we'll put some over there. Just kind of wherever you think needs a little bit of filler. Or maybe you want to add some more trees. Maybe this house needs a big tree. So I'm going to go find those oval trees. And I'll make my brush size bigger. So we can do like a nice big tree. Maybe even bigger than that. There we go. Now we have a nice big tree for that house. And once you've decided you've added enough to your map, it's all done.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest videos.